Thanks for clicking this video. Thanks for tuning into my channel. My name is Simon Hill, Black American from Louisiana, coming to you live from Budapest, Hungary. The time where I'm at right now is about 5:51 p.m. and it is January 7th, 2025. Now, today we're going to be doing this live stream where we read the news like we always do. And then afterwards, stay tuned for the special reading of the book, White Women, Black Men, Illicit Sex in the 19th Century South, written by Martha Hodes. This is our 8th book in our Book to React series, so stay tuned for that. Stay tuned for that. Also, stay tuned for more movie reviews coming. I just watched Wicked with Ariana Grande, and we also watched Booty Call with Jamie Foxx. So those are the two movies that we have up for movie reviews with Acty and I coming soon, so stay tuned for that on the channel. So make sure you like, subscribe, and all that good stuff that we always do on this channel. Now, let's jump into one of our main stories for today. I don't know if y'all heard about this story. This white woman right here, is charged with breaking the bones of black babies. Henrico nurse Erin Stratman charged after premature babies suffer broken bones in NICU. A year-long investigation into the alleged child abuse suspects that at least 7 babies have been harmed at the Henrico Doctors Hospital in Virginia between 2023 and 2024. That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. This was published on January 6, 2025 on The Independent, written by Madeline Sherratt. I'm sure y'all have seen this story on your timeline. This white woman charged with, breaking the bones of 7 black babies. I mean, this makes me think of the woman in the UK who killed a bunch of babies in the ICU. And yeah, this is just a horrible story. Let's read through it right here on The Independent. You can find the link in the description. So let's go. A nurse at a hospital in Virginia has been charged in connection with an incident that left a premature baby suffering from mysterious fractures, though investigators suspect multiple babies have experienced similar abuse. Erin Elizabeth Ann Stratman, 26, of Chesterfield County, Virginia, a former nurse at Henrico Doctors Hospital's neonatal intensive care unit, was charged with malicious wounding and felony child abuse Friday, according to a Henrico County Police press release and booking records. The shocking arrest came on the back of a wider year-long investigation that discovered multiple infants who suffered similar fractures, the Henrico Doctors Hospital said Friday. Henrico County Police said they were re-examining multiple cases from 2023 and 2024, suggesting that several babies suffered unexplained fractures, as per the press release. At least 7 babies are believed to have been harmed, reported the Washington Post. Now, if this is true, that this woman did this, broke bones, legs, bones, and babies, man, bury her under the jail, pack her up, send her to hell, as Nelson Moreno says in the chat. Pack her ass up, man. We definitely need to send these snow demons to Guantanamo Bay. We need to send them to military barges. We need to have court tribunals to charge people like this who want to hurt the innocent babies, man. This shows you, man, the lineage of evil that flows through the veins and the genes of the Caucasoids is deep. It's raw. It's real. Continuing here. Stratman became a registered nurse in May 2019, according to the Virginia Department of Health Professions, but it is unclear when she began working at the Henrico Hospital. Henrico Police Division refused to confirm how many babies had suffered the ambiguous fractures to The Independent. Families of at least 3 of the babies were reported to have attended Stratman's arraignment Friday. One of them was father of 2 twin boys, Dominique Hackey. His sons were born at 28 weeks and endured nearly 3 months inside the NICU in 2023, reports the Washington Post. Speaking with the newspaper, Hackey said that in the past, he and his wife went through 2 miscarriages and were later faced with watching their child, Noah, in a NICU. Noah had been making a strong recovery when a nurse delivered the dreadful news in September 2023 that he had suffered a fractured leg for reasons that remained unclear. All right. Nelson Moreno says Whitey is going extinct. They're going extinct, but they're trying to bring us with us by literally trying to kill our babies. Literally trying to kill our babies. That's crazy. It was Hackey's mother, a former NICU nurse, who prompted the investigation, which has been on and off for a year, after reporting the incident to a Child Protective Services, said the Post. it was very confusing. It was a very confusing time because you bring one of the babies back to life, then you abuse my other baby. How am I supposed to feel? Hackey said. Investigators revealed they had scoured hours of video footage from inside the NICU after it was provided to them by the hospital, stated the release. In May 2024, Hackey said CPS informed him that his son was one of the 4 babies to be injured at the Henrico Doctors Hospital. Last month, he discovered that 3 more babies had reportedly been harmed. Then Friday, in the courthouse, he learned that a baby had been abused only 4 days after his son Noah. One couple also informed him that their child had suffered 12 fractures, news that left him in tears, said the Post. 12 fractures on a baby? I couldn't even fathom it, the father told the outlet. The Independent contacted Hackey for comment. Stratman is currently being held without bond in Henrico County Regional Jail West, according to booking records. Her next court appearance is scheduled for March 24th. As of Monday, police said the investigation is ongoing. At this time, detectives continue to re-examine all evidence in the case to determine and further criminal violations, said an email statement from Henrico County Police Division. Police urge anyone with any information about the incident to contact Henrico Police Department M. Lynch at this email here, or submit tips anonymously via Crime Stoppers at this number here. And if any of y'all are in Virginia, the DMV area, and y'all know anything about this white woman right here, if y'all ever seen her hanging around the mayonnaise section in the supermarket, if y'all ever seen her conspicuously staring at black babies, call the police. Call the police. Simon Hill Keeps It Trill hates the police. I hate the police, but we want to send these snow demons where they belong, to the underworld, to the netherworld, to Guantanamo, to prison cells all across the world. All right, that's where we want to send them. Okay, let's continue here. So on Friday, Henrico Doctors Hospital spoke on Stratman's charges, stating, "We are both shocked and saddened by this development in the investigation and are focused on continuing to care for our patients and providing support to our colleagues who have been deeply and personally impacted by this investigation." So yeah, once again, a very sad story right here. Absolutely tragic story to hear about somebody that would be this heinous, this wicked, this hateful, this racist to attack babies. And how do we know these babies are black? Because all the parents of the babies who are victims are black. What does that tell you about her? What does that tell you about her? And Nelson Moreno says that's a MAGA vote. That's a Trump supporter if I've ever seen one. Trump supporter if I've ever seen one, breaking the bones of black babies. Their parents got to go up there and testify before the court that this demon tried to break the bones of their babies, man. Absolutely a shame. Y'all go look up more on that story to see that it's actually real. All the parents are black. All the babies that had their bones broken are black. And this woman is the one being charged. All right? Let's never forget. What's her name? Lucy Letby. Let's never forget Lucy Letby. Do we remember this woman? We talked about this snow demon on my channel before. Lucy Letby, the British woman who killed multiple babies in the UK. Lucy Letby. Let's never forget, man. They have a lineage of evil. Lineage of evil. Anyway, man, continuing on and what's happening in Virginia. Let's continue on to the great state of Virginia. 3 ex-deputies face murder charges in Virginia inmate's death. The deputies restrained the man after he was uncooperative and combative while being booked into the jail, officials said. He was hospitalized after a medical emergency and died days later. This is not an old story. This was published on January 3rd, 2025 by Adil Hassan. What is happening in the state of Virginia? What is happening? You got white nurses attack people. You got white nurses breaking the bones of babies. You got Virginia cops beating up mentally handicapped prisoners. What is happening in Virginia? And you can look at the thumbnail of this video to see what the cops looked like. Hold on, wait. Let's see, 7 Virginia cops. Yeah. So I think we know why these cops got charged with murder, unfortunately, because they don't have the complexion for the protection. And these 2 good old boys right here happen to be hanging out with the wrong crowd. Because I'm pretty sure if this was a pack of good old boys, there would not be any charges. But let's read this story. Once again, this is the story we're reading right here for the New York Times. 3 deputies face murder charges in Virginia, and you can find the link in the description. So, Three former sheriff's deputies in Virginia Beach were indicted Friday on murder charges in connection with the death of an inmate who had been held at the city jail last year, according to the Virginia Beach Commonwealth's Attorney Office. The men are accused of causing the death of Roland Hill, a 34-year-old Virginia Beach man who was taken to the Virginia Beach Correctional Center on June 4th on charges of trespassing, resisting arrest, and disorderly conduct. Once there, Mr. was uncooperative and combative as he was being booked, and deputies had to restrain him, the Virginia Beach Sheriff's Office said at the time. Within 90 minutes of arriving at the jail, Mr. Hill had a medical emergency, the office said, without specifying what that emergency was, and was taken to a hospital. It's troubling for me to read this story because it says Mr. Hill right here, right? So I'm reading this story about what happened to this black man going through a mental episode. Cops are restraining him, and I can't help but imagine myself in that situation, man. Can't help but imagine myself in that situation. So Mr. Hill died on June 10th, and his death was ruled a homicide. The medical examiner concluded that the cause of death was positional and mechanical asphyxia due to restraints with neck and torso compression. Dozens of cameras at the jail and the deputies' body-worn cameras captured the episode. Video footage has not been released, and the authorities have declined to give details about what happened. Colin D. Stoll, the Commonwealth's attorney for Virginia Beach, said Friday that he could not speak about the facts and evidence of an ongoing case. The former deputies, Eric G. Baptiste, 39 of Virginia Beach, Michael C. Kidd, 39 of Chesapeake, Kevin B. Wilson, 34 of Virginia Beach, were each charged with second-degree murder, which carries a maximum penalty of 40 years in prison. In addition, Mr. Baptiste faces 5 counts of assault and battery, while Mr. Kidd faces 2 counts. Sheriff Rocky Holcomb of Virginia Beach said last year that his office would investigate, but he also immediately requested a third-party investigation by the Virginia State Police even before Mr. Hill had died. In October, after he had received updates from the state police, Sheriff Holcomb announced that the 5 deputies involved were no longer working for his office. A grand jury chose to indict only 3 of the men, according to the Commonwealth's Attorney's Office. Brian Latuga, a lawyer for Mr. Baptiste, said that his client had an exemplary career dedicated to serving and protecting this community and the inmates who are incarcerated within it. He has been wrongfully accused of a horrendous crime from apparent actions while performing his sworn duties, Mr. Latuga said. I just gotta say, if you're a cop and somebody is handcuffed and they die in your custody, while you're like punching on them, no, you didn't do your duties in the correct way while you're serving the public and protecting us. I'm so sick of people like caping for the police. Why do people automatically cape for the police as if we're one of them? The police are not our friends. The police are not on our side. They're here to protect private property and uphold racist laws. Continuing here. Lawyers for the former deputies did not immediately respond to calls requesting comment on Friday night. Mr. Hill was an Eagle Scout who loved surfing and skateboarding, according to an obituary published in the Virginian Pilot. Mr. Hill's family, requesting privacy, did not comment on the indictments, Macy Allen, a spokeswoman for the Commonwealth's Attorney's Office, said on Friday night. The Virginia Beach chapter of the NAACP said Friday that it continued to be disheartened and outraged by the death of Mr. Hill, who was black. See, this is why this story hits hard for me, man. It hits hard for me because if you're a black American, man, you know you could be a hashtag. You could be a New York Times article. You get what I'm saying? And when I see this, even though I know, this is not me. I don't live in Virginia Beach, etc., right? But as black Americans, right, when we see people with our same last name, we're like, damn, man, we could have been on the same plantation. Anyway, these charges represent a critical first step in the pursuit of justice, but they also underscore the need for greater transparency, accountability, and reform within our criminal justice system, the chapter said in a statement. According to the indictment, Mr. Baptiste is Hispanic, Mr. Kidd is white, and Mr. Wilson is black. So let's make this clear. According to the indictment, the cops who killed Mr. Hill, one Hispanic, one white guy, and one black guy, I don't think that disproves the idea that this is a racist attack because anybody can uphold white supremacy. You don't have to be white to be a white supremacist. Candace Owens is our prime example. You get what I'm saying? Like, you do not need to be white. You can be Hispanic, Asian, whatever, to uphold white supremacy, just as long as you're committed to killing black life and extinguishing it randomly. That's all it takes. Continuing here. In November, Sheriff Holcomb created a new post to give more oversight and transparency in an all-inmate related services. The police captain who was promoted into the role began his job last month. In his statement, Mr. Stoll, the Commonwealth's attorney, said, "My most heartfelt sympathies are with the Hill family as they mourn the tragic loss of Roland. I continue to ask for the public's patience as this case moves through the court process. As in all cases involving the tragic loss of life, my office is committed to seeking justice for Roland Hill." Rest in peace, Roland Hill. Let me see this brother, man. Let me see. I want to see what this brother looked like, man. Unfortunately, man. This is Roland Hill. This is the brother who passed away, murdered by the Virginia police, man. Honestly, he looks like my brother, man. My brother got that big bell pepper nose like that. Brother looks like he could be related to me, low key, man. So when I see this story, man, it really breaks my heart because, I mean, we share the same last name. He looks like my cousin. He looks like my brother, man. And so the Virginia police need to be held to account. Those racist police officers murdering a man who had a mental health problem in our country that's supposed to be the safest, the freest, the most prosperous nation in the world continues to exterminate black life. When will we as black folks in America realize we live in a country that hates us? We live in a world that hates us, but there is no country that hates black life more than the United States of America. You can be handcuffed, you can be going through a mental health episode, and your life can be extinguished by a coalition of white people, black people, Hispanic people, all for the sake of holding up white supremacy. I spit on the American flag. I spit on that fucking country's constitution. I fucking hate the United States of America, burn the Senate to the ground, bomb the White House, all that shit, man. Evil, wicked nation, disgusting nation, man. Absolutely disgusting. Anyway, man, before my blood pressure pops out through my veins and through my neck and my heart, let me close that story down. We're gonna go back to the police. We're gonna go back to the police real quick because it's not just the Deep South. Let's go to California. It's not just the Deep South. Look, what did Malcolm X say? What did Malcolm X say? What did Malcolm X say? If you're south of Canada, you're in the South. And California is no exception. California Police Department agrees to reforms after federal inquiry. The Antioch Police Department was under investigation by the Justice Department after racist text messages between its officers were released in 2023. So, once again, it's not just in the South where you have racist cops, evil cops, in a wicked system. This was published on January 5th, 2025 by Orlando Mayorkin for the New York Times, and we're going to read the article right here. Let's get into it. So, the police department in the Northern California city of Antioch has agreed to be monitored by federal officials for 5 years after reports of racist and sexist texts by officers drew outrage and led to a civil rights investigation. As part of the agreement announced by the Justice Department on Friday, a law enforcement consulting firm will review and update the Bay Area Police Department's policies on hiring and training, use of force, community policing, and other areas. A police department that discriminates based on race and other protected classes undermines both public safety and public confidence. Ismail J. Ramsey, the U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of California, said in a news release, "Today's agreement will help ensure that policing in Antioch is done constitutionally and will help restore public trust." In a statement on Friday, the Antioch Police Department acknowledged the settlement and said its cooperation with the Justice Department underscores our dedication to fostering trust, transparency, and accountability. The department also said it was cooperating with state officials in a separate civil rights inquiry. In April 2023, the district attorney in Contra Costa County released text messages obtained during an FBI investigation into the police in Antioch and Pittsburgh, another Bay Area city, that were shared between officers in group chats and direct exchanges dating to 2019. Yesterday, before I continue reading and tell you what these police officers said, yesterday I said on my live stream, I get racist messages from white folks all over the world, particularly in America and the UK, but all over the world. I get racist messages on my YouTube comment section all the time. And then when I look who these people are, these are doctors, teachers, nurses, police officers, school principals, school teachers, all sorts of stuff, man. So are you surprised to hear that police in California are sending racist text messages and the N-word to each other? Are you surprised to hear that police in California are sending sexist, evil messages back and forth to each other? When they're coming up, when they're so bold and brave to jump in Simon Hill Keeps It Trill's comment section to call Simon Hill the N-word, to call Simon Hill a monkey, to call Simon Hill a C-O-O-N, to call Simon Hill all sorts of racial slurs, just for speaking out against white supremacy, are you surprised to hear that the police in California are sending racist messages to each other, and it got so bad that the federal government has to come in and say, stop it, stop it, stop it, you racist cops in California? Are you surprised to hear that? No, of course not. We're not surprised to hear that. Let's read, actually, what the police were sending to each other. In the messages, officers used racist slurs to describe black people, bragged about the use of force, and during the protests in 2020, in response to the murder of George Floyd at the hands of police officers, used slurs against Mr. Floyd and mocked the public outrage against racism in law enforcement. Come on now. Are we surprised to hear that California got racist-ass cops in the most wicked racist nation that ever existed on the face of the earth, the United States of America? Are we really surprised? Are we really surprised that those people that we see every day walking outside who say howdy neighbor, who are at the Kendrick Lamar concert with you, singing Not Like Us with you, all behind closed doors are using racist slurs against black people? Are we really surprised? No, we are not. No, we are not. Continuing here. In one message, an officer talked about potentially shooting Lamar Hernandez Thorpe, Antioch's former mayor, who is black, with a firearm that uses rubber or other less lethal bullets. The investigation that uncovered the messages also led to 4 federal indictments involving 10 Antioch and Pittsburgh police officers for a slew of crimes, including the illegal distribution of drugs, faking records to get pay raises, and improperly sicking dogs on unarmed residents. Come on, man. All right, come on, man. Y'all got to read this. This is not a game. We're putting this in the chat. These crooked ass, racist ass cops. These crooked ass, racist ass cops. Fuck the police. This is why I say every single time, there is no such thing as a good police officer in America. There is no such thing as a good police officer in America. There is no such thing as a good police officer in America. Nelson Moreno says they need to hit that. They need a hit of self-esteem. I don't know. They need to be under the jail. That's what I think. Not a self-esteem boost. Nelson Moreno says, Not Like Us was about reclaiming the culture. That's why it was popular with whiteys. Yeah, exactly. They said, they not like us. We gonna take it. We gonna take it. Anyway, man, we're not surprised that the California Police Department is full of crooked cops who are racist as hell. Because let's continue here. Let's continue. Walk with me. Walk with me through the story. 6 officers, including 2 from Antioch, have been convicted of falsifying records to get raises. Some of the indicted officers have pleaded guilty or have trials pending on the other charges. The Justice Department's agreement with Antioch may be one of the last inked under the Biden administration to address abuses by the police after ramping up efforts during its term to improve public safety. As President Biden's term draws to a close, it is uncertain whether the agency will continue holding local police departments accountable in the same way under President-elect Donald J. Trump. Coyote Prophet says facts. Shout out to Coyote Prophet. Don't know exactly what you say in facts too, but yeah, we're always going to be challenging the powerful in authority, and the police in America are wicked. The police in America are wicked. Nelson Moreno says, not like us Negroes, we're the dummies that sit in the back of class. I think Nelson Moreno is Team Drake now. I think he's Team Drake. Let's continue here. Let's continue here, because it's not just California where we got racist police departments. Let's continue. In the past month, the Justice Department has struck tentative deals to reform the police departments in Louisville, Kentucky, and Minneapolis, 2 epicenters of the social justice protests of 2020, as well as to improve the conditions at Fulton County Jail in Atlanta. All 3 must still be approved by a judge. In Minneapolis, the agreement first needs to be approved by the city council. Unlike those agreements, the Antioch settlement is not a consent decree, an arraignment with the federal government involving monitoring that is overseen by a court. In the Bay Area, some civil rights advocates expressed wariness about Antioch's pledge to institute reforms and saw the findings of investigation into the department as indicative of a much larger problem. So I got to say this, man. Basically, every police department across the U.S. should be under consent decree. We need a federal police department, if we even need police in America, because I'm not trusting Would you trust the police in Louisiana to deal out justice rightfully to black people? I want to ask anybody out there who's black right now, anybody listening, do you think the police in Mississippi are fair to black folks? Do you think the police in Texas are fair to black folks? Generally, I don't even think the federal police in DC are going to be fair to black folks, but at least the federal government has oversight. At least the federal government has decrees in it to make sure that these police departments can't be rampantly racist. All police officers in America are corrupt and they are upholding white supremacist, racist laws. And they need to be toppled. We need to have a federal police force in America, if we even need the police at all. Because I am not trusting, if you can't even trust the police in liberal-ass California, how are we going to trust the police in Missouri? How are we going to trust the police in Tennessee? No, we don't trust no police, man. Anyway, I'm going to say this here. Kamal says, I lived in Virginia Beach for a couple of years and studied law enforcement administration in that Commonwealth. No wonder I never took the badge. I got to say, Kamal, salute to you for at least trying to, do something positive with your life. You know what I'm saying? But it's crazy how these police officers get away with so much. They get away with so much. And then the federal government has to come in, all right? Nelson Moreno says, I'm becoming radicalized. We should all be radicalized. We should all be angry. We should all be turned up, and we should all live as revolutionaries. We should all be advocating for the type of change we want to see in the world. I'm going to continue here. So the people say we are because the Antioch Police Department's actions reflect deep-seated racial injustice in policing across the Bay Area that disproportionately harms black and brown communities. Nisha Kashyap, an official with the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights of the San Francisco Bay Area, said in a statement, the agreement is a necessary step, she said, but it must lead to real change, not superficial fixes. In a statement, Mr. Hernandez Thorpe, who lost his re-election bid in November, praised the deal and said that as a result, his administration had met its goal of reforming the culture of racism that he said had plagued the department for decades. Mr. Hernandez Thorpe has said his city's police force was slashed about half and left severely understaffed after the indictments came in August 2023. His successor, Ron Bernal, is tasked with continuing the recovery of staffing levels. The city, like others with shortages, has turned to financial incentives to attract new officers. Now, for people that don't know, Mr. Hernandez Thorpe, he is not a, Latin American man. Mr. Hernandez Thorpe, I believe, is a black man. Here we go. Hernandez Thorpe is a black man. Hernandez Thorpe was the mayor of Antioch, California, and the police threatened to kill him. I'm not making this up. We literally just read this in the article. The police in California threatened to kill the black mayor for investigating their racist behavior and their shooting of unarmed black civilians. This is in 2025, my guy. This is not 1965. This is 2025. We have racist police threatening terrorism against elected officials in America. Come on now. Now, I think the brother is married to a pog. I think he got a white wife, but let's not forget, that don't matter. No, that's not his wife. That's not his wife. It don't matter. I'm tripping. He might be married to a white woman, but it don't matter. It don't matter. This brother right here was trying to do the right thing in elected office, investigating racist police, and the police threatened to kill him. Now, somebody tell me if there's a good police officer. Somebody tell me where there's a good cop. Coyote Prophet says, I used to be a sheriff in New Orleans. They are beyond corrupt. I mean, come on now. Louisiana is one of the most corrupt states in the nation. Most corrupt states in the nation, man. Anyway, man, I wanted to read this article here because, as you see, I'm getting worked up about this, but this is a study that I thought was interesting. So after police kill unarmed black people, sleep worsens. But only for black people. White people don't lose any sleep over black people getting killed by the police. I wonder why that is. Black people in the U.S. were far more likely to report harmfully low sleep in the months after a killing compared with white people surveyed during that time. This was published in the New York Times on February 5th, 2024, but I just came across this article, so I thought it would be good to read. So, black people in the United States are more likely than white people to report that they do not sleep much, research shows. On average, they live in louder neighborhoods, longer hours, and pick up more late night shifts, concerning to public health experts since sleep deprivation is linked to chronic health issues and early death. But a group of public health researchers from multiple universities and the National Institute of Health wondered whether unequal exposure to police violence could also be contributing to racial sleep disparities, since those events are known to increase hypervigilance, worry, and post-traumatic stress. They designed a part of complex studies to measure how police killings of unarmed black people affected sleep among black people and white people over time. The results were published Monday in the journal JAMA Internal Medicine. Go now to the comments. All right. Coyote Prophet says, yep, ask me why I got fired. I don't know if I want to get you in trouble, man. I don't know if the statute of limitations is up. You can tell us why you got fired from the New Orleans Police Department, man. But I'll never forget, man. I had a homegirl in college. I studied in New Orleans. I went to Loyola University. I had a homegirl in college. She was a beautiful, beautiful girl, very tall, like ballerina-esque black girl. Lovely girl. She was my best friend. I never tried to holler at her, but she was hella cool. She grew up in New Orleans her whole life. One time, she told me that, the cops pulled her over in a car, and the cop asked her to get in his car, and then he tried to have sex with her. And she never went to the police or anything about it. But I always remember that story because she came and told me and a group of other friends that this, happened to her. And she was about 21 when that happened or something like that. So this cop literally tried to sexually assault, rape, one of my friends. And I'll never forget that, man. And I believe it was a black cop too, because, New Orleans is a very black city. New Orleans is like 60% black. You know what I mean? So it's crazy what goes down there in New Orleans. But anyway, Coyote Prophet said, I got fired because I gave a librarian books to give to 2 inmates to read. No lie. See, that's wild. That's wild. You should not have been fired for that. That's a good thing, man. People like that, we need more people like you. We need more people like you because the way they treat inmates now, they don't allow certain books to get into the prison system. They don't even allow certain inmates to write letters anymore and stuff like that. Wild stuff happens in jail. In jail, it used to be you could go to prison, come out with a BA, an MA, a PhD. That now many jails across the country are making that harder for people to do. So it's actually good that you actually tried to do that. Salute to you, man. Anyway, I'm going to continue reading this article right here. So, black people were consistently more likely to report harmfully low levels of sleep after such a killing than they did before it occurred, the researchers found, regardless of whether the killing was a nearby event or a high-profile incident captured in media. The researchers did not find substantial impact on sleep among white people in either case. Dr. Athidinar Dr. V, an associate professor of medicine, of medical ethics, health policy at the University of Pennsylvania's Perelman School of Medicine, was a co-author of the studies. He said the findings reflected the general human tendency to interpret events and disparities in events in ways that apply to you and your future and your family's future. Dr. V's lab, the Opportunity for Health Lab, uses statistical data to investigate the relationship between economic opportunity and health outcomes. He said that he said that standard health questionnaires and clinicians, including himself, tended to ask patients about behavioral risk factors, but that we don't really collect data with these kinds of timely social exposures in mind. Going now to Coyote Prophet, he says, they hired me back, but I declined and quit on the spot. Well, did you at least get your pension, man? Did you at least get your pension, whoa? No pension, no retirement, no severance pay? I got you, man. Hey, but man, I hope if you're still living in New Orleans, I hope everything is cool in the city after the attack. And much love to everybody in New Orleans, even though, I don't understand why people live down there, man, because that city is going underwater soon, man, with climate change being so far below sea level, man. New Orleans is... I'd be surprised if New Orleans makes it through this century with everything that's happening, man. But shout out to you, Coyote Prophet, man. So going on here, continuing on in the story, we're never really asking, hey, did you see something on the news that made you rethink your position in society or how you feel about your future, he said. These things change people's outlook about where they stand in society, he explained, and they can get under the skin to affect health. Sleep is one of those things that can move very exquisitely in the face of these types of events. The new studies on sleep involve federal data from the Behavioral Risk Factor Surveillance System and the American Time Use Survey between 2013 and 2019. Researchers used those timestamp surveys from about 190,000 from black people and about 1,846,000 white people who had been called at random by phone and asked about, among other topics, how much sleep they got. Then, using statistical data from the Mapping Police Violence database, the researchers identified whether a police killing of an unarmed black person had occurred in a survey respondent's state within the previous 3 months. If they found one, they compared the respondent's sleep duration with that of people who had been called before the killing. They also compared the answers with those of people surveyed at a similar time, but outside the region. Survey responses were sorted by whether the respondent's total sleep duration fell between 7 hours, which is considered short sleep, or 6 hours, considered very short sleep, since that threshold has been even more closely associated with poor health outcomes. I barely sleep. I barely sleep, man. I barely sleep. So maybe I'm too worried about black folks getting killed. Coyote Prophet says, no, he's in Chicago. All right, well, shout out to Chicago. I'm sure it's like negative 30 degrees out there in Chicago right now. I'm sure you walk outside, you get hit with that hawk right through your chest. That wind just lifts you up in the air. but living in Chicago is like living in Frozen, man. Nelson Moreno says, Simon, if you do film review today, I'll join. Hey, we might review Wicked. Nelson, I don't know if you've seen Wicked with Ariana Grande. I literally just watched it, so we could review that together. How about that? So let's continue here. So after controlling for an array of factors such as seasonal temperatures and unemployment rates, found that black people were 2.7% more likely to experience less than 7 hours of sleep in the first 3 months after an officer had been killed. Officer involved in killing an unarmed black person in their state, with before the killing, and 6.5% more likely to report less than 6 hours of sleep compared with before. To address potential bias, the researchers looked at associations between sleep and other events, such as police killings of armed black people or unarmed white people, but they found no significant links. They also applied regression models to samples of white respondents and found that associations between sleep and police killings were not statistically significant. In order to account for the fact that police killings were likely to affect people across state lines, they designed a second study, this one looking at the influence of high-profile killings on a national level. The study compared changes in sleep patterns among black respondents before and after the killings with changes among white respondents, especially subtracting the differences it's seen in white respondents from the ones seen in black ones. Here, the magnitude of the findings was even larger. In the national level analysis, researchers found that black people were 4.6% more likely to report less than 7 hours of sleep and 11.4% more likely to report less than 6 hours of sleep in the months after a killing compared with white people surveyed during that time. Karen Lincoln, a researcher at the University of California, Irvine, who studies local determinants of health disparities and was not involved in the study, said she would have liked to see researchers include a more robust set of sleep metrics beyond duration, since other factors, such as how often it takes to fall asleep or how often they wake up during the night, are often linked to stress. Very interesting stuff here, man. And this is related to me as a sociology student right now, so it's good to read this stuff. All right. Coyote Prophet, I don't know what you laughing at, man. Oh, you laughing at the Chicago jokes, man. Family in Chicago, but I could never live in Chicago, man. It's not because of the violence. It's not because y'all eat pizza that looks like a casserole. Because it's the Midwest and there's no mountains and y'all got the worst looking white women in the country. It's not because of any of that. It's just because it's too damn cold. And I love the cold. I love the cold, but Chicago is a beast with the cold. That Midwest cold, that Minneapolis cold, that Chicago cold, that Milwaukee cold, that's a different animal. You feel me? I can't handle that. It's not because of the bad white women. It's not because of the pizza casserole. It's not because of the Chicago accent, which is crazy, by the way. Chicago accent, what up, Joe? None of that. No, we don't do that. But yeah. So Nelson Moreno says, nah, Simon, not Wicked. What the hell? I don't know what else to watch. We got Booty Call and we got Wicked. I don't know. Maybe you could watch Booty Call real quick. Yeah, Booty Call is about 1 hour and 20 minutes long. You can watch that and review it with us. But yeah. All right. Coyote Prophet says, or even levels of sleep apnea among melanated people. That's true, man. I mean, our people suffer so many, health disparities because of the situations that we live in, right? High levels of stress, low access to good quality healthcare. So yeah, that adds on. But just generally, the stress of being black in America shaves off years of your life. You get what I'm saying? Let's continue in the article. So, Dr. V said he hoped that researchers aiming to measure other timely social factors in health, for example, the effects of immigration policy or school shootings on communities, might find that rather intricate study design to be instructive. The goal of this really was to be a methods paper, he said. You have to cut this many different ways, try many different things, not privilege any one approach over the other when assigning various exposures, he said. Then he added, researchers can show that regardless how you do it, you're still seeing the same signal. This article was written by Emily Bognater, and it's very interesting, man. Very interesting. I mean, there have been times that I literally cried watching the TV, about Trayvon Martin, about Mike Brown, about Troy Davis, you get what I'm saying, about Oscar Grant, Sean Bell, George Floyd. You know what I'm saying? There have been times I literally cried, watching the news, seeing what was happening to our people in America, man. And that's what radicalized me in some way, to leave America and get out. So, I'm not surprised that these are the results of the study, that, when another Trayvon happens, black people are going to stay up all night on social media, sharing information, talking about it, debating with stupid white supremacists and Russian bots about it. And yeah, man, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing that we're so connected, but I think it's important to stay informed, regardless. So anyway, jumping into the comments, Coyote Prophet says, do Dune. Man, I don't know what it is about Dune. I just can't get into it. And I love Star Wars. I think I would love Star Trek. I watched both Dune movies. I watched Dune 1 and Dune 2. I just can't get into Dune. I don't know what it is. Like something about people just saying spice, spice over and over for like a good 2 hours. It just doesn't rapture me. You get what I'm saying? Like even in Star Wars, they don't just constantly talk about the force, the force, the force. I don't know what it is about Dune. It's just, I can't get into it. I have nothing against Zendaya or Timothy Chalamet, whatever. The graphics are cool. The acting is cool. The world building is, you know what I mean? The thing about Star Wars that I like is that they go to different planets. And the Dune movies all take place basically on Arrakis. And that's like if all of Star Wars took place on Tatooine. Star Wars would not be Star Wars if all those cool-ass moments took place in the Tatooine desert. Nobody cares about Tatooine, right? I think, didn't Tatooine get blown up anyway? But why is Dune so, I don't get it. For me, it's boring. Somebody tell me the appeal about Dune. Make Dune make sense for me. Because I understand it's a long mega space saga and it's about the Middle East and about Islam and parallels to geopolitics of our world, but I just don't get the appeal of Dune. Like I love Star Wars and I think I would like Star Trek, but not Dune. All right, Coyote says, do Star Trek Discovery, lots to unpack there. I would love to start watching Star Trek. My father loved Star Trek. And he was always watching Star Trek when I was a kid. But when I was a kid, I thought Star Trek was boring because they were just mostly talking. But now I feel like I would love Star Trek. So I'm going to do that. I'm gonna watch some Star Trek probably in 2025, man. Probably going to watch some Star Trek here. All right. Yeah, I got this thing about Jimmy Carter I want to read. Got this thing. Coyote Prophet, I don't know how old you are. Feel like you are OG. I feel like I should call you Unc, boss. I feel like I should call you Unc because I feel like you were around when Jimmy Carter was around. Anyway, Carter once supported segregationist policies, but he eventually won the enduring support of black voters. This is an opinion piece written after Jimmy Carter recently died for the New York Times. So without black voters, there would have been no President Jimmy Carter. In 1976, African Americans catapulted the underdog Democrat to the White House with 83% support. 4 years later, they stuck by him, delivering nearly identical numbers, even as many white voters abandoned him in favor of his victorious Republican challenger, Ronald Reagan. This enduring black support for Mr. Carter illuminates two intertwined and epochal American stories, each of them powered by themes of pragmatism and redemption. One is the story of a white Georgian politician who began his quest for power in the Jim Crow South, a man who, as late as 1970, declared his respect for the arch segregationist George Wallace in an effort to attract white voters, but whose personal convictions and political ambitions later pushed him to try to change the racist environment in which he hadn't raised. The other is the story of a historically oppressed people flexing their growing electoral muscle after the landmark Voting Rights Act of 1965 removed obstacles to the ballot box. Certainly for some black voters, candidate Carter was simply the least bad option, but for others, the election of 1976 and 1980 were an opportunity to take the measure of this changing white man, recognizing the opportunity he presented, and even better, his angels. His example in Georgia as a representative of the New South, as one of the new governors from the South, was exciting and it was appealing, said Representative Sanford Bishop, a Democrat whose Georgia congressional district includes Mr. Carter's home. It carried the day in terms of people wanting a fresh moral face for the presidency. And that's the story of Jimmy Carter and black folks a little bit. I mean, I'm sure it's deeper than that. I'm sure Jimmy Carter said some racist stuff. I mean, he's a white man from the deep South. Come on now. Jimmy Carter was racist, but still, man, we got to, you know what? Jimmy Carter probably wouldn't be that bad of a president if he was around in 2024. He was too moral of a man. He was too moral of a man. He was too good. He was too good for us. All right. Nelson Moreno says, review The Apprentice. If you're talking about that Donald Trump movie, we might do that. That's a good choice. I've been wanting to watch that. Shout out to Nelson for putting that up. Finesse Carter. Is that a movie? Or are you talking about Jimmy Carter as Finesse Carter? And Nelson Moreno says, they love a segregation prez more than Drake. That's hilarious. That's hilarious. Anyway, we're about to wrap up this live stream pretty soon. But I asked this question in the poll. I asked y'all, what do y'all think about this? Is it possible to build a black utopia in America? Some of y'all said somewhat agree, somewhat disagree, but overwhelmingly totally disagree. Very interesting. And so this brings me to this. What does utopia look like for black Americans? Aaron Robinson's grandparents had a farm in Promised Land, Tennessee. In a new book, he explores the history and meaning of such utopian communities for African Americans. Gonna briefly read through this. Then also stay tuned afterwards as we read our new book, Illicit Sex Between Black Men and White Women in the 19th Century South. Stay tuned for that after we finish up reading this. And I'm going to blow through this real quickly. But before I do, Nelson Moreno says, yeah, hit me up if you review The Apprentice, the Trump movie. Okay, I would like to watch that. And any other good movies, man. Always send movies my way. We're going to try to cover, man. So anyway, let's go here. So, looked at from a certain surface level perspective, the whole notion of black utopianism can seem to entail a paradox. As the literary scholar Charles Scruggs put it more than 30 years ago in Sweet Home, Invisible Cities in the Afro-American novel, given what we know about the position of black Americans within a racist society, the idea of a black utopian city may seem absurd on the face of it. Yet the opposite observation seems equally true. Those with the least to lose, socially and economically speaking, are often the most receptive to radical thinking on how to reorder human society, and the most fluent in wielding it, at least in the imaginative realm. To quote Aaron Robertson in his distinct and idiosyncratic new book, The Black Utopians, the apparent persistence of abysmal realities for black people and the certainty that there exists much more besides is the soil from which black utopianism emerges. This book is a formal hybrid that oscillates between a personal history and a more scholarly one. Plenty of pages perform in a relatively straightforward way the work one might come to the book expecting. That is, they discuss the diverse dreams, migrations, and collective social experiments of African Americans. Other chapters are more impressionistic. Several consist of letters written to the author by his father, which describe the elder man's hardships, among them a decade-long prison stint for armed robbery, and his fascination with a Kentucky preacher named Stephen Darby, who sermonized online about an 18th century black utopia known as Negro Land, where dreams come true. Some readers may find this eccentric structure bemusing, but Robertson comes by it honestly. He grew up in Detroit, of all American cities, perhaps the one most often called a dystopia, he notes with irony. But his youth was marked by memorable pilgrimages to his grandparents' farm in a place called Promised Land, about 40 miles west of Nashville. Founded soon after the Civil War by newly freed African American families who had been enslaved at a nearby ironworks, the settlement, which today, though barely, fits into a tradition of Reconstruction-era black townships born in a frontier utopian spirit. The slaveocracy was dead. New ways of living and being briefly seemed possible in the ruins. Robertson was fascinated by the trace of these energies as preserved in his grandparents' memories. He beautifully reconstructs the history of their town as it ran through the lives of his ancestors. Promised Landers built the school benches and the chimneys. They created everything but the tattered books and newspapers that came to the schoolhouse from Charlotte when white children of their parents no longer needed them. They built the school's elevated stage on which Popper performed James Weldon Johnson's poems from God's trombones as a child. This included the one in which the Heavenly Father admits to feeling lonely and finds joy in a new activity. I'll make me a world. Going now, Nelson Moreno, he said, would whiteys be allowed in the Negro utopia in Negro land? Pogs, only pogs, only pogs. We want only pogs in Negro utopia. We want only pogs. We only want Tyler. We want Tyler, pogs. What else? Alicia Keys, Mariah Carey, Mariah the Scientist. Okay, who do we want in Negro utopia? Okay, the Church of Islam. What is the Church of Islam? What is the Church of Islam? If you're talking about the Nation of Islam, and if you're referring to Fard, man, I don't know. Fard, the Church of Islam. Yeah, Coyote Prophet. I think you mean the Nation of Islam. Tyler, Pogs, Alicia Keys, Mariah Carey. That's what we want in Negro Promised Land, okay? Only those will be allowed, okay? Continuing here. So, those Southern experiences sensitized Robertson to a utopia closer to home, namely Black Detroit by the Reverend Albert B. Cleage, Jr. The Black Christian nationalist, in turn, bought a 4,000-acre farm down in South Carolina and called it Beulah Land. They dreamed of working it collectively and exporting the fresh produce to inner-city neighborhoods across America. All right, so who is this right here? This is the Reverend Albert B. Cleage, Jr., the pastor of the Shrine of the Black Madonna in Detroit in 1968. All right, so I know a lot of y'all, maybe some of y'all might be saying like, Nelson Moreno says the Church of Islam. I think when Nelson... When Nelson, the Church of Islam, he imagines like this guy right here. But this is a light-skinned brother, man. And we always notice when we go through history, when they say like the first black man to do this or that, especially like back then, they were heavily like white admixtured. You know what I mean? Nelson Moreno says, I'm not American. I don't know the terminology, but I know the founder was white. I don't think Fard was white. I don't think Master Fard was white. I think he was like from Pakistan or something like that. But Master Fard, I don't know if he was a white dude. And either way, if Fard was white, that's the worst type of psyop the American government could ever do. Like, why would you purposely like radicalize a bunch of black men to be anti-government, anti-establishment, anything like that? You know what I mean? And we have to remember that our people come all shapes, colors, and sizes, right? And so, you know, I have people in my family that look like Fard. Let's keep it a buck. Like, you know, Coyote Prophet is from New Orleans. New Orleans got a bunch of red bones and light-skinned people, man. There's a bunch of like, you know, very light, bright Negroes in New Orleans. You feel me? So you can go to New Orleans and see a brother that look like this. You know what I mean? And I know the brothers in Portugal are pogging heavy. I know the brothers in Portugal are really hitting all them big booty Portuguese girls. So pretty soon, walking around Portugal, you're going to have people that look like Fard. You feel me? All right. Nelson Moreno says he was super weirdo. Just skip through his wiki. He was a scammer. I mean, I know all about Fard, man. As you know, I'm a 5%er. So I was a 5%er. You feel me? So yeah, we know all about Fard. Anyway, let's continue here in Negro Utopia. So the book thus shows back and forth from north to south like its author, imparting a sort of regional warp and woof to the narrative. One of the letters from his father shows that Robertson inherited this pattern or had it in his bones. Being happy in Tennessee, his father writes, made me realize that I hated Detroit. Whenever we left to return north, I would enter my first stage of depression. The depression would deepen in Kentucky. By the time we were in Toledo, Ohio, I was bracing for the disappointment of my daily life. Robertson's most forceful stretches of attention are given to Cleage and the Black Christian nationalists. Cleage, just like the word utopia, Robertson tells us, preferred the term black realist. Even so, he was well versed in many of the thinkers, groups, and movements that are now regularly identified as part of a broader utopian tradition. These ranged from the spiritual practices of gurus and mystics to the rebellions of Haitian slaves and Maroons who lived in the swamplands of the American South. In tracing the organization and evolution of the Black Kibbutzniks around the shrine, as members called the group in reference to the shrine of the Black Madonna, Cleage's church, where in 1967, on a wall that had once featured a stained glass wall depicting a white pilgrim, the Detroit artist Glanton Dowdell painted a large portrait of a dark-skinned Virgin Mary. Robertson gives us a picture of a utopian movement in all of the classic phases: an early ecstatic revolutionary idealism, followed by increased radicalization with the focus on control of members' behavior, leading to isolation and political marginalization, and finally a drastic falling off in membership and influence. As Robertson reminds us, though, the movement is not completely dead. The Beulah Land Farm continues to operate, and many of the movement's ideas were admirable. Black Christian nationalism was not a black version of white Christian nationalism. It was interested not in excluding, but in gathering, to create zones of shelter from the violence and constrictive rhythms of white supremacist capitalism. Counter institutions where visions of more sustainable lifeways could be developed and taught. Robertson had done impressive research reflected in ample endnotes, but readers expecting a thorough treatment of Black utopianism as a historical topic will not find it in the Black Utopians, nor in fairness has he promised it. Robertson is not a trained historian, but an accomplished editor, translator, and journalist, and his ambition, at least here, is as a storyteller. A history of Black utopianism proper remains to be written and will be essential when it is. Nevertheless, his book is strong enough on that score to represent a meaningful contribution to the wider literature on American utopianism. In this regard, it belongs on a shelf with Jana Brown's Black Utopias, Speculative Life and the Music of Other Worlds, 2021, and Alex Zamelman's Black Utopia, The History of an Idea from Black Nationalism to Afrofuturism. And here's the copy of the book if y'all want to find it. The Black Utopians, Searching for Paradise and the Promised Land in America, written by Aaron Robinson. This is an interesting book. I might pick it up. I might skim through it, might read it. I got a big book haul on Amazon, and you know that we always do book readings live on this channel. Going now to Nelson Moreno. Nelson Moreno says, can we have whitey slaves in the land? I believe all we need are the Pogs. Just give us Pogs, Tyler, Mariah Carey, Mariah the Scientist, and yeah. That's all we need. Only high IQ ninjas can come in. If we don't have the low IQ ninjas, who's gonna rap for us? Who's gonna make fire beats? Who's gonna be like spitting verses, man? Who's gonna do it? Okay, I don't know why you're grounded for that disrespect. Okay, y'all are wildin'. I don't know what happened. I missed that part. Coyote Prophet, born and raised in Chicago, but lived in New Orleans, lived all over, including but not limited to Hawaii, Boston, and North Dakota. Shout out to Coyote Prophet. That's a traveling man right there. That's a traveling brother right there. Anyway, man. Y'all be easy out there. We just wrapped up this reading of the news. You know, we come on live stream every day to read the news for at least an hour, then we cut it short. But also after this live stream, we're going to be reading our book, Black Men, Women in the 19th Century South, Martha Hodes. This is a dope book. Y'all tune in for this book, man. This is the book that we're reading now on live stream. White women, black men, you feel me? We did the last reading yesterday. So y'all go check out this video for anybody that's still tuned in. We got 7 people here, so y'all go check out this video. the one we did yesterday, Book 3 at 8, Sex, Love, and Marriage Between White Women and Black Men Before Slavery's End, Part 2. This was published yesterday on the channel. Go check it out. It's only an hour long, hella dope. And we're reading chapter 3 today after this live stream. So y'all go support your boy. Be easy out there. Shout out to everybody. Shout out to Coyote Prophets. Shout out to Nelson Moreno. Shout out to Nelson Moreno. Shout out to Coyote Prophet. Shout out to Kamal. Shout out to everybody who tuned into the chat.